So tonight we have a really cool conversation I think is so incredibly interesting. It shows us a lot about how much our industry is changing. And it's with our good friend, Tara Abramowicz. Tara is a hairstylist, also a global Redken artist, works all over the world to educate and inspire other stylists. But here's what's kind of interesting. Tara is also an openly autistic hairdresser. And this has been a big influence on what we're going to talk tonight about, which was what led Tara to create the Chat or Chill client experience card. So let's all in the chat a huge welcome to Tara Abramowicz.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
We're so stoked to have you here. Like I said, this is kind of a different type of conversation, and I'd love to hear a little bit more. Like, why did the kind of, you being more open about the fact that you're autistic, how did that lead to creating something like the Chat or Chill card?
Well, honestly, it's because right around the time that, a lot of people were shut down for the pandemic, I stepped back from being behind the chair, as all of us had to for a bit. And then when I came back, I noticed that like conversations were that much more impossible for me. Like social interactions were really difficult. And I found that they didn't flow like they used to. And other stylists too, I could hear it around me. I think a lot of people kind of lost their social interaction skills. And right around the beginning of the pandemic is actually when I found out I got diagnosed with autism right around the beginning of the pandemic. So there was a lot of self-discovery and learning about why I was having these challenges. And right around that time, people started sharing on social media, you can have a silent appointment. You can have a silent appointment. And whether it was because of the political climate, whether it was because of pandemic stuff, people were feeling like they needed to set the tone of the time with their guest. And for me, I didn't know how to ask people. I felt really uncomfortable and I felt like they did too. And we were playing like this, I don't know, like invisible tennis match. And I was like, can I just make this easier? And so at first I tried doing things with my software, like sending people messages before they came, like what type of, did they want a silent appointment or not? Then I found, to be very honest with you, as a busy stylist, I had a very hard time keeping track of like who wanted what. And there is nothing worse than asking for one type of service and getting a different one. So I thought, what if something could always remind me as I'm looking like in the mirror or working with my guests, what if we're talking or not? And so I invented the Chat or Chill card, which literally just sits on the station and they can like flip whether they want to chat or chill while they're at the salon.
Nice. That's so cool. And it's interesting because when I first started our conversation, that was the first time that I had heard the term silent appointment. And I'd just be curious for those of you that are watching out there, type in a yes or a no if you've heard of this concept of a silent appointment before. So I would imagine that part of the challenge is just how do you introduce this as a conversation? Like, how do you want your experience to be? So how do you help to, coach people to be able to start that conversation with people?
Well, that's actually a really good question because I test marketed this for probably about 6 months before I actually went live with it. I gave it out to lots of other stylists that weren't me because I wanted to see how they implemented it and what their conversation looked like. And then I developed a strategy. So with that, it had to be at the end of the consultation because, when people come in, they still you need to know what you're doing. Like, you can't just be like, all right, so I don't know, let's just do it. That doesn't work. So especially if it's a new guest, typically, I'll end the conversation and right before I go to, whether we're going to be shampooing or whether I'm going to be applying color, I'll literally just say, oh, and you may have noticed I've got this card on my station. And, during your time here, you might be here for a long time or a short time, but I get it. Life is really wild. If you feel like you just want to throw in some earbuds and listen to a podcast, you can go ahead and just let me know by selecting chill on the Chat or Chill card. And that's it. Like just at the end of the consultation. If you have a lot of returning guests, make sure to keep saying it at the end. Oh, and don't forget about the chat or chill card, whatever you want. And that way it just takes the edge off, because I think we all have days where we don't want to talk. So that was helpful for me personally.
Yeah, even when you first started to talk to me about it, it was like, it's 50-50 for me. Because there are times if I have a lot going on, I've got a lot in my head, I would almost just prefer to just like sit and just chill and like read or something like that. Go, grab a magazine, if those still exist. But
yeah.
And then there's times that like, I want to be super chatty. I want to have a conversation. Just checking in our comments, and it looks like about 50-50. Amy says yes, and Tara says yes, they've heard of it. Lisa said no. Larray said no. So it's about 50-50. Shirley's heard of it. Sarah has. And Tara, great question. Tara said, how are clients responding to this?
So great question, Tara. What I would say is some of my people I've been doing for like 10 years, for example, they'd be like, ha ha ha, oh, because they're like, I never thought I could have that option. And it's interesting because the first visit, they don't touch it. And it's funny because you're like, you tell them and then you go, oh no, like, was there a point to it? Yeah, because then on their next visit, they'll come in and they've already felt like they know what to do. And so, for example, I had somebody literally use it yesterday and it was super fast. It was like the second she sat down, it was like flipped. And I think, I don't want to make any assumptions about what her day looked like, but I'm assuming she came in from one, and so I think what it was she just flipped that card and was like, I'll say probably 20% of my clients use them regularly. That's not a huge percent, but I think there's a really huge, comfort for a lot of guests knowing that they could if they had a hard day. And I feel like that's what it's about, right? An experience when they come to our salon that they feel safe and that they know they're going to walk away feeling really fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So just in general, I think there's a lot of things that we assume about how people want their experience to be. Like I built a very specific process around, well, this is the experience that I give, but not everyone wants the same experience. So, how else do you kind of guide that conversation as far as like other parts of your experience?
Well, that's really a huge point too, because before I knew that I was neurodivergent, which is another way to say like, you're on the spectrum or, your brain works a little differently. Before I found that out, there was a lot of things I didn't like. I used to go to, if I was getting my hair done at the salon, I would just kind of suffer through the shampoo. And sometimes it's really interesting because I don't like my hair washed. I just don't. And I would always be like, ooh, I'm picky. Ooh, But the funny thing is that nobody ever asked me what type of shampoo I wanted. Sometimes they'll say, ooh, is the water temperature okay? Or, oh, is that enough pressure? But nobody said to me like, do you want me just to get this done? Or do you want like a therapeutic massage? And the fact that it was like we have an opportunity here. Like these are our guests that are like trusting us to the service. So, whether it's like talking about conversations or not, chat or chill, whether it's about when they come to the shampoo bowl and saying like, hey, so what do you want your shampoo to look like today? I can give you a beautiful, relaxing massage, or I could just wash your hair and you could be back to my chair before you know it. What do you want? And it's really surprising because it's about 50-50 and we are trained that everybody wants a therapeutic massage. And I'm sorry to tell you, it's been not the case for my clients.
No, I can totally, again, relate to that because with my, once we moved out here to Oregon, I haven't worked in a salon since we moved to Oregon. And so I've had to go and be a client, like just a client again. And it's been pretty eye-opening, honestly, because for me, there are these moments where he's like, and I actually have to give him credit. He does ask, like, do you want me to go through like the shampoo and head massage and all that stuff, or do you just want a quick rinse? And there's lots of times where I need to get back here to the office And I'm just like, you know what, man, just do a quick rinse today. And my priorities are this today.
Mm,
It doesn't change the price. It doesn't change anything.
right.
And in fact, he's catering into what I want and what I need in the moment. So I think it's great to continually check in, like, what do they want? And I'm seeing lots of comments. Samantha made a comment, and Shirley, and also Terry, that you can kind of pick up on these things a lot of times, right?
Mm, yeah.
Here's the thing is, like, sometimes I don't know that we're comfortable enough to
Mm,
actually say, like, hey, even if I do kind of pick up on the fact that my client seems like they're in a hurry or something, I might be a little afraid to bring that up or bring it forward.
right. I think something that I hear that a lot from hairdressers. It's like, oh, well, we're supposed to read our guests, but like with full honesty, like some people talk out of anxiety. Like some people chatter or some people are like, yeah, yeah, okay. And they seem like they're having a great time when they're not. And I think remembering that we aren't mind readers, it's like you could feel a guest out, but like, a lot of people think like I'm this huge extroverted person because I can talk a lot and I'm very big with my expressions. But the thing is that like realistically, most social interactions I'm extremely uncomfortable with day in and day out. And so we can't make any assumptions about a guest. And I'll never forget when I first started doing this. I have to share this little story because this is a client I've been seeing for about 10 years. Okay. A long time. We have a rapport. Okay. If I should be able to read a person, I should be able to read this person. Right. And I have these big windows at my salon. And so I went to go mix up the person's color. And I did the whole spiel about my Chatter Chill card and she knew about it. And I go over to mix the color and I see everything because I've got these big windows. And I
Mhm.
literally watch. I've never seen somebody so quickly dive for the Chatter Chill, like, "Ah," and switch it. And I was like, ooh, like I thought we were gonna be hanging out today. And like the craziest part is she seemed like she was up for it. So I question, like, for those of you out there who are like, I read my guests, like, are you 100% sure you're right every time? Because truthfully, like, I've been surprised at the number of people who have signified different things. So I just that's a thinker.
Absolutely. I love that recommendation because I think it's always safest to just have a conversation and confirm what maybe our suspicions are.
Mm,
And so I think that, a lot of what I do as a coach is asking people to confirm their stories, right?
mm,
Like, oh,
yeah,
okay, well, this is the story we're creating. And a lot of that has to do with our own perceptions, right? Like,
mm,
well, I like this and I'm this way and I feel this way. And it's really hard to not let those preferences or perceptions affect how we're interpreting someone else's energy.
yeah. It's so true. And like, to be honest with you, like part of, people think autism and they think somebody who like just looks at a smile and goes, I don't know. But that's not really the case. Oftentimes I notice every tiny little detail of what people are doing. If shifting on uncomfortably in their right shoe only, if their left arm keeps moving backward a little bit, if they're slightly shifting. So with that, not sure if I've lost connection. Hi, did I lose connection?
No, you got a little fuzzy just for a
Hi,
second, but you're
did I lose you?
okay. Nope, you're here.
Okay, I'm back. Okay, cool. Um, yeah, so I felt like reading people, like I always notice these little things, and like you said, I would put my own story into it. Like, oh, like maybe I feel awkward in that moment, and then somebody's like moving in their shoes and they're kind of looking around, and it's like, like I might be going, ooh, they don't want to talk to me. Ooh, this is awkward. Ooh, I should just give up. And the person might be looking for the closest bathroom. I mean, let's be honest, we don't know. You know what I mean? So I think realizing that we don't know what's happening is a huge part of kind of our own self-awakening.
Absolutely. That's awesome. So, the thing that I would have also kind of picture could be a question is like, okay, well, if I tell my client you're going to have a silent appointment, what about things like all these things that we were taught that were really important during conversations, like talking about product, talking about rebooking, talking about, requesting referrals and things like that. So, if we tell people we're not going to talk to them, what about that stuff?
Oh my God, that's such a great question because, I think that separation between business and like conversation could be a little misconstrued here, right? Like the silent appointment isn't going to be like, at least not in my chair. And I guess it could be customized differently on everybody else's standards. But for me, it's not completely silent. A huge part of it is. So if you are, again, a new client, you could do something along the lines of like, all right, cool. So you've done the consultation, you talk them through chat or chill, and then they go ahead and like let you know that they want this to be a chill appointment. Or maybe you've got a booking system that says silent appointment. Set the stage. When they sit down and maybe you drape them, you could say something along the lines of, great. So I'm just going to be cutting your hair for the entire appointment with no conversation. When it comes to the products I'm using in your hair, I could show them to you and give you a quick demonstration. Would you like me to, or would you prefer I stay completely silent? Simple as that, because you're still asking, and some people are like, well, wait, I want to know what you're putting in my hair. And then you get that opportunity to then feel that person out later. I've even literally just like held up a product and been like, sprayed it in and then like show them what it does. It's like you don't have to have that conversation. And frankly, even like you could cash somebody out and you're bringing them over, you go there and you go, you want this, so you can sell product, you can rebook somebody. And often I end my conversation after I like cash somebody out. And then I say like, let's just book another one while you're here. It doesn't have to be this whole, did you want to, let's do this. How about May? How about and then show them on the screen what you're doing, or show them in your book what you're doing. We don't have to have this whole long rigmarole. So you can still do all those things. And I still find myself pre-booking and selling retail just actually, honestly, almost more in my silent appointments because they're more checked into the product. They're not hearing about my dog or my kid or whatever. So
I was just thinking that, Tara. I was like, I almost feel like for a lot of people, this would help because it's going to keep the conversation really focused. Like it's not going to turn into just, because sometimes it's almost more awkward. You're in this deep conversation with them. It's like, okay, how do I break into this conversation to talk about moose now?
Yeah. They're telling you something heavy and you're like, so when you're feeling heavy, here's some mousse. You're like, what do you say?
Sorry about your divorce. Here's some gel.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, ooh. So I agree with you. And I sell a lot more products, and frankly, I'm more focused on their needs and they feel it. And the people who have said like they want chill almost always ask for it now, which is wild. So what does that say?
That's cool. I love it. So for those of you that are watching, please pop into the chat any questions you have for Tara as far as silent appointments or, how to utilize this in your own salon. What other questions do you run into? Because I know you've been, like you said, you've been doing a lot of research with different people before you started to this. What other questions come up that you find, or resistances do you find for people that are looking to do something like this?
Well, it's actually really funny because I reached out to quite a few hairstylists that I was offering to just ship them free ones to hear what they said. And, I had a couple people being like, wait, you want me to ask my clients if they don't want to hear me talk? And like, to be honest with you, like I have had where I find the most resistance is people taking it personally. And, thinking like, ooh, like, they don't want to talk to me. Like, and like at the end of the day, I just try to remind people like, yeah, it's not about you though. Like we don't know what's happened. And shoot, if they don't want to talk to you, but they want you to do their hair, do not take it personally. This is a business at the end of the day. And I mean, while we still want to enjoy it and love the people that we're working with, it kind of preserves your own mental state at the end of the day. I think, at least for me, if I have somebody, for example, who's a really, really big talker, and maybe people out there can agree or disagree. If you have somebody who's a really big talker, and then your next client comes in and you're like, whew, all right, so what are we doing today? You know, like it
Mhm.
almost can be draining. So um I'd say the resistance is this feeling like people don't want to talk to them, but also kind of the status quo and feeling like, well, what I do is working for me. But it might not be, because then you're drained for your next guest, you know? So,
Absolutely.
mm.
Well, the good questions, the two questions that just came up from Shirley and Amy are: where do you purchase the Chat Chill card set?
Oh, great question, friends. So you can actually go to the website, www.clientexperiencecard.com. There's quite a few different options on there. As a matter of fact, I have a mirror option, so you can stick it to a mirror if, say, your station doesn't have like a shelf on it. I also have these ones. I call this the archetype because it's a little bit, I don't say like fancier, you know, where it's got a full metal card. This thing is fully like washable. It doesn't wear and tear over time. And then a metal stand. And then I have another one called the prototype. That one is like really, really cost effective. It's a little smaller. It's a plastic card. So I wouldn't recommend that one for long-term use. But I think it's excellent for people who just want to step into it and see how it goes in their salon.
Yeah, beautiful.
Thank
Love
you.
that. Thank you. Um,
Mm-mm.
Tara's asking, have you ever had negative feedback from clients about the Chatter Chill card?
One person ever, and it was really funny. Again, somebody I've been doing their hair for like 10 years, and he was like, ha ha ha, people actually care about that kind of thing. Like that was it, you know, and I'm just like, well, some people do, you know, and that was it. But yeah, no clients felt like irritated in any way. You know, sometimes people are like, oh, well, whatever, I'll chat, you know, and then maybe don't touch it. But that's it, really. Nobody's mad about it. In fact, most people thank me, to be honest. Most people are like, oh, thanks for that option, and then never touch it for that person, even. So they thank me, but only one person was like, why? You know, he's a funny
Right.
guy, anyway. So.
Yeah. One of those snarky puppies.
Yeah. I mean, same. I get it. So.
Yeah, I would think too, just based on like the stylist personality type, this could be awesome, you know, because I do a class, and you know, those of you that watch often, I think you might have been in this on Wellness Wednesday one time, where we talk about the disc profile, which is our communication
Mm,
style.
yeah.
And the high D's and the high I's are very, you know, like they're really responsive. They have no problem being chatty. The
Mm,
S's and C's, they have a little harder time being super chatty.
mm,
So I often have people that are that communication style
mm,
ask like, oh my gosh, how can I do this? Because I'm just not naturally chatty and all of these things. And I do think that that was kind of an expectation that was placed on us as
mm,
hairdressers a long time ago, that it's like, you got to keep people talking, you got to keep them entertained, you got to keep all this happening. And I could really see people that are, or that S or C communication style, that do have a hard time like being super chatty, really benefiting from this, so that
yeah.
they know it's like, oh, well, I don't have to try it, you know, with this person, or okay, this
Right.
person, they do want some time to be chatty.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm so happy you shared that, because I think one of the hangups that a lot of people have when they look at this is they only think the silent part. They don't
Mm.
think the chat part. And it's really, it was kind of like mind blowing for me at one point, because I had a guest, when I told them about the chat, she'll say, oh my goodness, like I had this stylist, and I left her because, you know, she didn't talk to me a lot. And she's like, I'm not chatty, but like I love hearing what the hairstylist has to say. And I heard her talking with other people, and they're getting along, and they're talking. But she would never talk to me like that. And she was like offended and felt like this person didn't like her. And so I think another, when we read our guests and thinking we have this person who is so quiet that they must like it quiet. Like you said, with personality types, maybe that person has a hard time initiating conversation, but they love being a part of it. And that was huge for me, because I was like, oh, dang, like Okay, so when people signify chat, I'm like, they want to talk. And that also was another thing that had me a little surprised by some of my super quiet people, that I was like, oh, they just want this place as quiet as possible. And it was not that for that person. So I love that you shared that, because this is the personality type thing. So, and like for me, I'm very wordy. So sometimes when somebody's like, nope, I'm like, stop sign. All right.
And this would have been perfect for me when I was in the salon, because I was kind of okay either way. But Shirley and Tara kind of both mentioned that it can be pretty draining if it's constant. And I would have loved to just have that opportunity to be like, oh, okay, like I just had a really chatty client. Someone turns the card and it's like, cool. I don't even have to try. I don't even have to guess. So I could see a big weight being lifted off your shoulders. And I do really like what you just said, which is, well, if they turn to chat, that means I want to chat.
Yeah.
So that does lead me to a little question, Tara. Like when you set this up, do you kind of have it on your thing always on chat and they have to turn it to chill, or do you like hand them the card, or what, how do you ask them to make the choice?
So it's funny because I have played many different ways with it, because at first I had a couple people be like, what is this, a teleprompter? Because if you think about it, it's like right there, it says chat, and they're like, I guess we're chatting, it's like one of those things. So I've toyed with having it just resting on the station and just, pointing to it. I found less people were actually apt to pick it up. I think it depends on your client, but, placing it in their hand, they'll usually go ahead and do it right away. So if you feel comfortable just handing it to somebody, oftentimes, like, to be honest, 90% of my clients have been seeing me for 5 years or more. And so when that's the case, like handing them something every time they come in is a bit redundant. So I just usually keep pointing to it and say, hey, don't forget chat or chill today. But if it's a new guest, absolutely hand it to them. I think that that's a huge opportunity. And then their future appointments, because of course they'll rebook, they get that opportunity to then decide. So that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, especially on that first appointment or two, it seems like you would want to make sure that they feel comfortable actually making that turn. Because like you said, I actually would probably be one of those people that if I sat down and it was already on chat, I would almost feel like, I know she gave me permission, but I kind of don't want to touch it,
Right.
Like,
Yes.
So I love the idea of actually, like, take it down and be like, hey, look, you get the choice today. Like, you get to
Absolutely.
set the tone.
And like stylists, I just have to say this, Andrew, like if you've ever done this, anybody, if you've ever sat in your car when you get home and just sat there for a couple minutes and you're like, you probably need a chat or chill card. I'm just saying, because you've probably talked too much that day, like I feel like a lot of people do that, right? I can't just be me. Does anybody else did you
Oh,
ever do
no, absolutely. And, hey, by the way, if you really want even more reason to have an opportunity to not talk, talking is hyperventilation. Because talking, especially because it's so much air coming out of the mouth, we almost never actually refill our lungs properly. And so it's a lot of, which causes hyperventilation and depletes our CO2 supplies, which puts us into a more stressful body state. It depletes our energy. And so having that ability to like close the mouth and just do some nice breathing while we do a couple clients that day would actually help with nervous system regulation. It would help with body health. So
that's
I'm all
like
in.
amazing. Yes. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Actually, do you mind if I take that with me on the road? Because I love it.
Yeah, actually, we can talk more, and I can give you actually the real information about how CO2 affects the nervous system and all that stuff. I'll be happy to share that with you.
I love it. I'm such a nerd. I'm very excited.
Yeah. Lorraine, I do like this point that Lorraine is making too, and it is tough, especially as a new stylist. If we're not comfortable having conversations, we do tend to maybe go to the menial kind of, so what are you doing today? Or so how's the weather? Like these things, and sometimes it can feel so forced too. So it gives us that opportunity to take that rest and not feel like we have to force these conversations.
Like, what a great point. It's such a thing. And like, if you've ever thought to yourself, did I already say that to you? Did I already say that to you? There's a good chance you're repeating the same thing all day too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, this is beautiful. Anything else that you feel like you'd want to share on silent appointments or how to utilize the Chatter Chill card?
Yeah, I think the biggest part for this whole conversation is starting the conversation, because that's the part that people feel the most uncomfortable with. But what I want to share with you is if you've ever walked a day with a rock in your shoe, it's the same feeling as not being able to share that you just want the conversation to be different. It can feel very uncomfortable. And whether that's your story or not, if you have more than yourself sitting in your chair, you may be surprised about what somebody else thinks. So I feel that, and that's all I want to say is like starting the conversation is the most important part. And even if nobody flips your Chatter Chill card or if nobody wants a silent appointment, you gave them the opportunity to say it. And I think your guests respect you that much more for that. So that's it.
Beautiful. So
Thank you
remind them
so much.
one more time where they can purchase the Chatter Chill card.
Yeah, so you can find it at www.clientexperiencecard.com, or if you go even on my Instagram, I've got my shop link on there as well, and there's all sorts of different opportunities for whatever type of style your salon needs.
Beautiful. Tara, thank you so much. This has been awesome. I don't know if you were able to see the comments as they were coming in, but just so much positive reinforcement for how needed this is. So
Yes.
if you have any questions for Tara, please, again, you can reach out to her, I'm sure, through the website or through the social media. But thank you again, Tara. We really appreciate you.
Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you for having me as well.
Absolutely.